We asked Dr. Brock to come here to share her thoughts and opinions about her experience in helping folks who have suffered moral injury.
There's a kind of suffering that human beings experience that's not really captured by a trauma diagnosis like post-traumatic stress, that there's more suffering involved than just that, especially for veterans. Unlike PTSD, it's not fear-based.
Shut up!
And you can have moral injury without PTSD, you can have them both, or you can have just PTSD. But moral injury is the thing that happens to a person when they violate their core moral foundations, which for most people lies at the center of who they believe they are as human beings, as good human beings.
There's a difference between PTS and moral injury, and I think that part of that is just knowing the difference, that there's this, this unseen wound, and acknowledging that there is an unseen wound, so we can better address it. And then the step-by-step process of, okay, how do we identify it and making people feel comfortable talking about that with their professional, with their leadership, and getting the help they need to get through that, because it's something that stays with people for a long, long time, but it can be addressed.
So if you witness, participate in, do things that make you feel like you're not a good person anymore, it can really damage your relationships with other people. It can make you feel ashamed, guilty. You may feel intense grief because you've lost your innocence or lost your previous sense of who you were. You may have lost friends, especially in battle. And all of that is a whole cluster of forms of suffering that focus around the loss of meaning, the loss of a sense of purpose, a loss of a reason to live.
It's imperative and important that we know how to care for our service members who have encountered a moral injury.
I had not heard of moral injury, period, and I had not heard of any type of address to that before today. And so it was helpful to understand, the implications of it, and that it's something that we need to deal with as we continue to fight and win our nation's wars.
You can seem fine, and you can seem fine for years. Karl Marlantes, who wrote the book What It's Like to Go to War, said he thought he was fine for 10 years. He came back from Vietnam, he was a lieutenant in Vietnam, and he came back after horrible experiences there and went to work, was married, raised his kids. So for 10 years he was going along, and one day at a stoplight, his 5-year-old daughter was in the seat next to him, and one minute he was looking at the red light, and the next minute he had a baseball bat and he was standing in front of the car behind him, and he was going to smash the windshield in. And he thinks the guy honked at him and something flipped. And then he realized he was in trouble. So he went to the VA, and they diagnosed him as having PTSD, but also he believes he also had a serious case of moral injury. They didn't have that term then, but he was struggling with a lot of moral questions and all kinds of things. When I read the first essay, there was an essay at the end of 2009 that defined moral injury as different from PTSD and said the VA wasn't treating it and didn't really understand it very well. That was 2009, that's not 9 years ago, right? I thought when I read that, it was gonna be a real uphill climb to get people to even think about it, because everybody was so preoccupied with PTSD. But what I found is, like here in this gathering, when you talk about it and spend 2 minutes defining it, people's eyes light up. They go, oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with PTSD, but that's not my problem. Moral injury is my real problem.
We're educating ourselves, that we're understanding a cultural dynamic in our military. And it really is about building culture, creating a culture of caring for one another, looking out for one another, covering down on one another, wherever your battle is, wherever your battle buddy is, right? That's where we need to be focusing on, and how we support one another. It's imperative. How to be ready now and relevant tomorrow. Relevant tomorrow, understanding moral injury within its whole context from different perspectives, and coming to a place of taking those things that we've learned from others and applying them for our unit ministry teams from the context that we minister or provide pastoral care from to other people. We can learn from a multitude of sources.
This has everything to do with the readiness that we've been talking about for the last several years, of preparing for the next war. And preparing for the next war, we look at the last one, sure, but we also have to prepare our soldiers through all their faculties to prepare for what they're going to face.